You ever think you're working too hard? Well, it might be true. We're talking about America's overwork ethic on today's BFD. America. When it comes to the developed world, we're number one in everything, including the amount of hours we work, sadly. More than the Irish, more than the Germans, and yes, even more than the Japanese, who have one of the highest suicide rates around, by the way. Probably because of this commute, but anyway, we're number one. Yay! So, you think I'm going to say that that's a bad thing, that we're working ourselves to an early grave, that our quality of life is going down the tubes, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're right. That is true. However, is there good with the bad? Here to help me figure it all out are TakePart.com's social justice editor, Allan MacDonell, and historian Thaddeus Russell. Thanks so much for being here, guys.
Thank you.
So first off, is this an actual problem? Are Americans actually overworked?
Sure. I mean, we're losing our weekend, we're losing our freedom, we're losing our leisure time. There's an increase in the number of hours Americans are working. People are living to work and working to live.
You know, there's all this research that if you work more than 8 hours a day, you're way less productive. Like if you work 10 hours, those 2 extra hours don't get you 40% or whatever many percent more production. There's studies of people, like as they're dying, they ask them, what are your biggest regrets? And they say, I wish I hadn't worked so much. People know this in their core, that if I work too much, I'm missing out on my life.
To play devil's advocate, this is what makes us who we are, right?
That's right. So these people called the Puritans brought this idea that work in itself is godly and virtuous, no matter what you get for it. You work to please God or to be a good person, not to get something for it. It's an end in itself, not a means to an end.
What about the scientist or the engineer, the inventor toiling away endlessly to try to come up with the greatest next innovation?
So if you have a personality type where that's what you're like, if you're just driven to work like that, there's no reason to stop that person. It's not like you have to tell a scientist you can't do that. On the other hand, you don't want to impose that on the majority of people.
The question is people who volunteer to work at things they wouldn't do otherwise, right? That's how I define work. It's something you wouldn't do otherwise unless you were coerced into it, right? So if scientists are working on their own to invent something, right, because they love doing it, that's not really the problem. The problem is when the boss says to you, gee, I could really use an extra 4 hours of your time tonight, even though you're not going to get paid for it. People say, sure, boss, I'll do it, right?
Let's get back to some the questions of why it is sort of culturally verboten to discuss this kind of stuff.
It's very widespread right now, especially in like the knowledge kind of workplaces, where you should have a passion, you should want to be here 10 hours a day. The millennials are having a hard time getting jobs they want. So if they get a job they want, they're kind of afraid that they may not be able to get another one. You play on people's insecurity, you can get them to commit to all sorts of things that they wouldn't if they didn't feel that they could potentially lose something that's valuable to them.
What else is it saying about the state of unemployment in this country?
What happens is, you know, if you can get 2 employees to work 60 hours a week, you know, you don't have to hire more people. So actually there was basically a forgotten movement among union leaders in the 1940s and 1950s to reduce the work week, and part of their argument was that it would reduce unemployment because it would force employers to hire more people to replace that work that had been taken away. That's been lost. That's a movement I would love to see reemerge in this country.
What are some ways that people can self-police when they think that they're potentially overworking?
That's tough. It's really tough because if it's the kind of environment where people are being laid off who aren't performing in that way, I mean, it's a tough decision.
Well, here's one thing we can do. We can stop shaming people for not working or not wanting to work. There's a tremendous amount of shame in this country that's directed at people who are considered to be slackers, right? Who are lazy, who don't want to work hard. When we stop shaming people, we will change this culture, we will change the world, we will live better lives, I believe. We will have more time.
Thank you guys so much for your time. I think I'm gonna go and not work anymore today.
Good man.
Americans are hard workers. It's who we are. Yeah, it may well be driving us to a wide range of physical and mental ailments like never before, but it is also driving and always has driven us to new horizons and fantastic innovations. But this good doesn't simply come from long hours with no reason. And in this economy, the potential to push employees too hard because they can't say no is always there. Let's not forget that if our American work ethic is something worth bragging about, then those human resources should be valued and not discounted. Tell us what you think about the issue of work by leaving a comment below. And while you're there, click the link to take action. For BFD, I'm David Park. Don't forget to subscribe.